Hello, and in today's video we're doing a very special transfer roundup. That's right, the transfer deadline for August 2021 to 22 is shut. That's right, I'm rating every single Premier League club's transfer business, ingoings, outgoings, all that lovely stuff, and I'm going to do it in the order that I rate them. So do go on to smash a like on the video and get your thoughts down in the comment section below of who is your team and how are you feeling about your club's business over the summer. So we're going to go in descending order. We'll start with who I think, just my opinion, so get down in the comments and disagree with me if you want to, about who the worst transfer business deals have come from, and then we'll lead up to the best. So, in 20th, it feels harsh, but I've got to go there. It's Newcastle United. Now, fair enough, Newcastle, you did well to stay up, and Steve Bruce guided you to a decent finish in the end. But, I'm sorry, you had to strengthen in this window. Alright, Callum Wilson, he's your main man. You wanted St Maximin fit, you've got him back fit. But, your goalkeeping situation, Dubravka, out injured. Then you had Carl Darlow getting COVID. Surely you had to strengthen there. But no, you went with, in the opening games of the season, Freddie Woodman. And that's a lot of pressure for a player of his, lack of experience. And you've leaked goals because of it. So, that is something you could have addressed, but you didn't. Defensively, I feel like Newcastle are still having problems, and you haven't brought in anyone in a defensive situation. And then midfield, I think with Newcastle's midfield, there are a lot of competition for places. Now, Matty Longstaff was rumoured with a move away to another club, Watford at one point, but he's still there. So if he is going to play, then I think he's a player who should get more minutes. He is quality, and he still needs to continue his development. But right now, Newcastle's midfield, Isaac Hayden, John Joe Shelvey, and it's just not really filling me with much inspiration right now. And what they have done is they've gone and got Joe Willock. Now that is a good signing, okay? From that loan move, he was on fire. He was making Newcastle more of a threat. And it was so important that he got that deal locked down as a permanent transfer. So I rate them for that. But that's all they've done. They've let go of a few not so much marquee players, and they've signed Willock. So for Newcastle fans, I think they'll be frustrated by this window. A lot has been promised. They're talking of the takeover and it never happened. And a lot probably would have been hoped for Newcastle to kind of go again this season. But they've really limited their budget. They're really limited in their transfers. And that's disappointing from a Newcastle perspective. So I'm ranking them, I'm afraid to say, in this 20th column. But just ignore the colours for now. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what we will do is we will add in a few more rows, if that's possible. It doesn't seem to be possible. But just hear me out. In 5th, which will be 20th in this list, that is where Newcastle United are going, in my opinion. So 20th spot there. Let's talk about 19th. Now, with 19th, I think it's a very interesting debate to be had because you've got a few teams who haven't had great windows, but I'm going there. I'm saying Brentford Town, or Brentford FC, I should say. Now, it's a harsh one because they haven't got much money to deal with, to work with, because, they haven't got much of a budget and they haven't got the financial strength that other teams have. But they have brought in Christopher Ayer from Celtic, which is a very decent signing. He's looked really solid in the first few weeks of the season. They've also got in midfield Frank Onyeka, who looks like a decent player, but he's unfortunately tested positive for COVID, so he's been missing the last couple of games. And, they've managed to keep hold of some of their main players, really, from the Championship season. Ivan Toney, David Raya, who's both been playing fairly well, and obviously Toney off the mark at Villa Park in the last game. So they've done very simple things, Brentford, but they've done them well. I just fear that they haven't done enough. I know that their financial position isn't ideal, but I just think they don't look like a side right now that's got enough Premier League experience. You've got a team that needs to gel, needs to get used to this season, and I do think they'll get a lot of shock results along the way, like that Arsenal game, and I think they could stay up, but it will be nervy, and it will be definitely a bit of a risk that they haven't got more Premier League experienced players in. So that's where I'm putting them for now, in 19th. But yeah, let me know, Brentford fans, what you're thinking. Moving on to 18th spot now. And again, this is a really tough one. The last so-called relegation spot for my rankings. And it's a few teams now that are kind of scrapping for this spot. But I'm going to end up giving it to a bit of a surprise team. And I hate to say it, but it's Arsenal. Now, Arsenal have been known down the years for not addressing their transfer problems. And I hate to say it, but I think they've done it again. Now, centre defensive midfield is their Achilles heel. And Granit Xhaka, how he stayed at that club, I do not know. But they needed to get in a player that's box to box and is good at that position. Now, fair enough, you could say Lokonga could do that, but doesn't fill me with confidence. He's not got enough of a profile for me to do that unless he emerges as a great talent. And they did need to get another left back because once Kieran Tierney goes out injured, they've got no one. So fair enough, Nuno Tavares, a very good player from Benfica. And they've also signed on deadline day Tomiyasu from the Bologna side in Italy. So that is a decent signing. But I just feel these signings aren't good enough for a club the size of Arsenal. They should be making more well-known signings. Okay, fair enough. These players are decent and they have some pedigree, but they're not exciting for Arsenal fans. And Ben White, all right, he's very good. And he was brilliant with Brighton last season, brilliant with Leeds the season before. And he does do what Arsenal need. And that is playing out from the back. He's very good on the ball. And, playing out of tight spaces. His distribution is fantastic. But he's not shown it so far. And Arsenal need to get some players in the January window, because I think right now their squad is a broken squad. It is a very disharmonious squad, and it doesn't feel like they're that happy right now. And I just worry that with Lacazette and Aubameyang still at the club, how many minutes will they get? They've got in, the youngster Balogun, but, he's going to have to take a while to step up to the plate. So it's a worry for Arsenal right now. I hate to say it, but I just don't feel that confident with their transfers. Odegaard obviously is a massive buy. He was so good for them when he returned on loan, but now it's a permanent deal. So can he fill that void in central midfield like Mesut Ozil did? I feel like it's a test of time. We need to find out. And Aaron Ramsdale, okay, it's not a bad goalkeeping transfer, but, to go from Sheffield United relegated to an Arsenal team, it's another bench warmer. It's basically the second edition of Matt Ryan. Is it a really pressing transfer that Arsenal needs to get done? No. Could it be beneficial in the future? Possibly, but it just feels like Arsenal are kind of avoiding their problems right now. So, alright, it's not a bad transfer, but I think they could have done better. So, I hate to say it, Arsenal fans, but for a club of your stature, despite your, struggles, I think you have an opportunity here, and one that maybe you might have missed with, no Europa League football, and all focus on the Premier League. You could have brought in some more strong players for the positions that you really are quite weak in my opinion. But anyway, let's move on to 17th spot now. And this is another tough one, but I'm going for, in this spot, a team who I feel like have been a little bit overrated in the past. But that team, I really don't want to do this because it's such a hard toss-up. But I'm going to have to, okay? So in 17th, I'm doing it. I'm putting the team that is... Oh, wait, hang on. We might have missed 17th from our list. Hang on, people. Bear with. Where is it? Oh, dear. Yeah, we've missed our 17th. Okay. Let me just come back to you, people, in a second. And then we'll be good to go. So we've got... Yeah. Okay, we found it. Okay, no worries then. Apologies for that. So in 17th then, we are going for a little bit of... Drum roll, please. Right, this is another tough call. Another bold call from me. But I'm going to say that 17th spot is going to... No, I can't find it, man. I genuinely, I wrote it down and now I can't find it again. What's going on? Ah, I've got it. Sorry, I hate to say it, but I've got it. And here it is, Southampton. Now, Southampton, I'm apologising right now because I wasn't going to do this to you. but I have. So Southampton in 17th. I had you up a lot higher up before you sold Danny Ings. I guess this is a massive blow for Southampton, and now they've gone and sold Vestergaard as well. I just think you're losing main players at the club, and that is not going to be good. And this might be controversial, but I feel like they haven't really strengthened in the positions they've lost. And, you know, they've brought in Roman Perraud, they've brought in Valentino Livramento and Adam Armstrong. Very good signings, I think. But Southampton still, I get fear with Southampton because they don't score enough goals and they still leak too many, and they just don't look like a team that's going to solid up right now until something drastic happens. So, you know, it might feel harsh right now because some of their players, you know, Lyanko from Torino is a good signing at centre-back, but I just don't know how quick Southampton will take to kind of adjust, and that does fear me with some worries. So 17th for Southampton, but it was a very close call. This is a controversial one now. I'm really going for it. But in 16th spot, this is bold. We're going for Liverpool, okay? Now, Liverpool, fair enough, their team's unbelievable, and they don't have to strengthen much, you would say, to at least get in the Champions League places, but they want to finish, of course, at the top of the league. They want to push for the title. And I just feel with Liverpool, they've let go of Gini Wijnaldum. That's a massive loss for them. And they haven't really got the marquee signings that will kind of say to everyone else in the league, we're still in this. And they've brought in Konate, great signing from RB Leipzig, very strong centre-back. There's no doubting the Liverpool's defence now is looking much stronger with Van Dijk back, with Gomez back, with Matip starting the season, and Nathaniel Phillips as well. Get down him on a contract. That's a good bit of business. But other than that, Liverpool haven't got a lot right now, and I think they did need to strengthen in order for their proving of a position from last season to get that progress. They needed to strengthen. I just think, another striker to back up Roberto Firmino, who's had injuries and had worries. Another fullback, perhaps at right back. If Trent got injured, they wouldn't want to play Nico Williams there. I feel like there's just a lot of spots where Liverpool could have been really clever, but they haven't quite had the money, or maybe, well, they've got the money, of course they have, they're Liverpool, but they haven't quite had the contacts, perhaps, to get these deals done. And I think that is a little bit of a rookie error from Liverpool. So it feels weird to put, I've done it with Arsenal, but a club the size of Liverpool, they've still got an amazing squad, but putting them as low as 16th, I think it is justifiable. Now, going into 15th spot then, shall we? In 15th place, I've got a team who I think are actually in a bit of spot of bother right now because their squad is looking quite thin and they've not done that inspiring business. So I'm going with Brighton in 15th spot. I do think Brighton's squad is still thin. They've started the season well, performances-wise, very, very good. In the first two against Watford and Burnley, they looked decent. But I just feel like they are a team prone to injury. You saw with Tariq Lamptey not starting the season. That's a great shame. Did well to keep hold of him, but I still feel Brighton won't score enough goals. And all right, Neil Maupay, 2 goals in the first two games. But they just don't look like a team that is going to cause too many problems, in my opinion. I like their style of football. I rate Graham Potter as a manager, but their signings don't excite me. And Mwepu, all right, he's not bad as a fullback. And I think Cucurella is a good signing. But other than that, I just think the loss of Ben White is a problem. And I think that, they just don't really have those midfield, other than Yves Bissouma, those midfield players that are going to dominate games and cause problems with chances. Because, as we say with Brighton every time, they create chances, but they don't score enough. So that's still an issue for me. They haven't got in a marquee centre forward. And that's where I'm putting them in that spot of 15th. Moving on, though, to 14th place. And this is Wolverhampton Wanderers. We're going for them because I just think the transfer window, other than the signings of Francisco Trincao from Barcelona and of Hwang Hee-chan from RB Leipzig, that's a very good signing. Sorry, it might be Salzburg. I always get confused between those two. But either way, those are good signings. Obviously, both of them are loans, so they're short term, but if they can get really, good start in their Wolves careers, then they could be nailed down for a few more times. Good players, there's no doubting Trincao, Portuguese, very, very good on the ball, and he's looked impressive in the first few games. And Hwang Hee-chan, he's a very good player that's done things, repeatedly for Salzburg. So, yeah, I'm impressed by those two signings. But other than that, I think, from the goalkeeping perspective, bringing in Jose Sarr, they had to do that because, Patricio left. And I think he's made some impressive saves so far. But I still worry about where Wolves' goals will come from. They have a lot of chances and they don't always score enough goals. Defensively, they're solid with Cody still at the back there. But I do worry about their fullbacks. I think Nelson Semedo was good at points last season, but he didn't really show that consistency. And Ryan Aït-Nouri, all right, from getting him on a permanent, it's a decent bit of business, but I just feel like Wolves left it a little bit to be desired. I think they could have done a bit more in the window, especially from a defensive point of view. But yeah, it's not bad from Wolves. Obviously, the return of Jimenez is massive for them, but I just think they could have had a better window. So I'm putting them there in 14th spot. Now, moving on to the next position, I've gone with Norwich. And that's probably not bad for Norwich. They'll take that, I think. Considering they're going to be around the relegation zone fighting for it, they'll take 13th spot, I think. So, basically, I think that Norwich have brought in some decent players, but it's a little bit of a similar situation to Watford, who we'll actually talk about in a little bit. We've put Watford up a little bit higher. Maybe that's my Watford bias coming in. But I do think we've genuinely signed some good players. Norwich, there's some decent heads at the football club right now. But are they enough? Are they enough to keep them up? Well, I think at the end of the day, some interesting players are in there. Josh Sargent, coming from Werder Bremen. You've also got Billy Gilmore, who wants more game time and is, going to have a point to prove. But also, defensively, I feel like their signings have been quite shrewd. Ben Gibson is a very good player to lock down on permanent. And, in goal, there's good backup there with Angus Gunn. But I just still feel, I don't know where Norwich's goals are going to come from. Milo Rashica is a decent signing. And I think Pukki's going to go for it again. But I worry with Buendia leaving that their creativity is going to be, nipped in the bud a little bit. I think Pierre-Lise Milou is a really good signing. But I just worry about how they're going to gel. I worry that they haven't got enough forwards at the club that are going to get them goals to kind of survive the drop. So for that reason, I'm putting them in 13th. But I still think for Norwich, they've brought in a lot of players, and some of these players look decent enough for Norwich. So fair play to them. But we are moving on now to 12th spot. And in this 12th spot, I've had a lot of deliberation, but I'm going with Leeds United. Now, you might say, Leeds United in 12th, that's far too low down. And I wouldn't agree with you on that, because I think their transfer window hasn't been that inspiring. Obviously, the permanent transfer of Jack Harrison is massive. That's a good bit of business. And I think Junior Firpo from Barcelona, the left back, is a very good player. But I think Dan James will take a while to get into the swing of things. I think that, Leeds, in terms of their goalkeeping situation, Meslier was very good last season. But I do worry if they have to, bring in their new signing, Clyson. Is he going to be, the best goalie to be up for the shout? We'll kind of find out, really. But I think Leeds will be happy enough with their window, but I think they could have done a little bit more. I think, they really should be pushing for Europa League football. And I do worry about the defence because, okay, they've got, Llorente, and they've got Robin Koch, and they've got, a few other centre-backs like Cooper at the club, but they did look quite leaky last season. I know that they improved at the end of last season, but they haven't started defensively this season that well. So that is a worry for me. But I think that Leeds will be happy enough with this window, and that's why I'm putting them at a respectable 12th spot. Okay, let's move on. And that is now 11th spot we're going to decide. And actually, I think this is a better transfer window than I predicted, but still not that great. It's Burnley. So Burnley in 11th. The reason I've put them above Leeds is because they've got one man who I think is going to really tear up this team, and that is Maxwell Cornet. Very good signing. I'm amazed that Burnley have managed to bribe him to Turf Moor, because just the way that Burnley play. 4-4-2. It's very fixed in its formation. It's at times quite negative, but it's effective. Burnley have been an established Premier League team for a while now. However, they didn't have the goals to kind of make it safe enough last season, and they do need to kind of find more goals. Dwight McNeil needs to get more goals in his game. Chris Wood as well. But Maxwell Cornet is a good signing, and I think that the signing of Nathan Collins from Stoke is a nice little steal, because he was one of the best Championship defenders last season. And Wayne Hennessy, another backup goalie. It's not spectacular from Burnley, but I think Cornet is a very good signing. And I think that just to get some new heads in the door, that team is quite that squad is quite thin right now. So that's going to improve morale. And I think that Burnley could do enough to stay up. But I do back them to struggle defensively. I still think, Nick Pope has been good, but defensively, I just think, there's better teams, unfortunately, in this Premier League season. But anyway, let's move on to the next team that I've got, and that is the ranking of 11th. And in 11th spot, I've had a lot of deliberation, but sorry, I should say 10th spot. We've just done 11th. In 10th spot, so this is slap bang in the middle. You're talking like not the worst transfer window, but equally not that good of a transfer window. So I'm putting Everton here because I think that they ultimately were a little bit underwhelming. The reason I say that is because they haven't got very marquee signings in, but they could be effective long term, okay? They've not spent a lot, and when I say they've not spent a lot, they've spent very little. 1.8 million on their whole transfers, and it was all for Damari Gray. So that is an absolute bargain, and looking at the way he started the season, he looks a fantastic player who wants to prove a point. He wants minutes, and he looks a really good signing. So fair play to that. But also, some of the business they've got done in this window isn't to be sniffed at. Salomon Rondon, I think he's still a good forward. He's still going to get goals, and he's kind of that target man alongside Calvert-Lewin, and maybe push out Richarlison onto the wing that Everton would have wanted. So that's not too bad of a bit of business, obviously coming from China. And yeah, I think that their defence still does have a few problems. I think Pickford, great Euros, but defensively, I still feel like Everton attack almost more than they defend. So they need to be careful about that. But obviously, with the way that Rafa Benitez got them set up, I think this is just a bit of a rebuild situation for Everton. And that's why their signings haven't been that impressive. Andros Townsend coming in, okay, not bad, but, it's not exactly exciting, is it? So I think Everton will be fairly happy, and that's why I put them in a bang average spot of 10th place. But yeah, not overly delighted with this window. So top 9 now. We're going to really rattle through it and at this point. And in 9th spot, we're going with a team who I actually do think have had a decent window. And as I said, maybe a bit of bias coming in here. But I'm going with Watford. And Watford in 9th because, okay, you're going to look at our transfer window and you're going to say, who are all these players? We've brought in player after player, but actually what we have done is we've spent the least of the promoted clubs. We spent very little, but we still managed to get ourselves in a little bit of debt, or not by much, about 3 million, in terms of what we've spent and then what we've let go. We've let go of some important players to kind of get off our books, of wage books, because, Troy Deeney, obviously that's not what I was referring to, but he wasn't going to be at the club for much longer, unfortunately. We've brought in too many signings. It's going to be sad to see him go, but yeah, he's an absolute legend. But people like Andre Gray, Stipe Perica, Isaac Success, players that we knew weren't going to get a shot at the Premier League because they're just not, competing enough. So those are good bits of business. But in terms of the arrivals we've brought in, I'm very happy. It might just be me that thinks this. Watford fans in the comments, get your thoughts. But I think we've had a very, very solid window. Not a spectacular window, but actually some of the signings are impressive. I think it's a solid 7.5 out of 10 because, the Manuel Dennis signing is impressive. He's got Champions League pedigree and, he was just at the wrong club, really, at the wrong time. He's had those, issues in the past with the manager and had a few problems with attitude, but actually he's looking much, much better for Watford and he's started already, so lively. So he could be the man to get us the goals we need. I also think that Judai Kuka has been impressive in the midfield. and Sissoko. I think that's a very solid and very impressive signing. Obviously, he didn't have an amazing end to life at Tottenham, but I think he's got a lot of pedigree. Very experienced for France at international level. And yeah, he certainly does a job in that midfield. So I think Watford have made some underrated signings, and certainly they'll be in with a shout. I think it will be tough. Watford were always going to be in the relegation battle in the thick of it, but I think they've given themselves a chance. I think a lot of people are still sceptical about our defence, and I say fair enough, because we're amazing in the Championship, but Premier League is such a big step up, and we haven't brought in a massive amount of defenders. Other than Danny Rose, other than Matty Pollock, who we've actually now loaned on to Cheltenham, there is a bit of a worry there, because if someone like William Troost-Ekong, who when he goes off to the Africa Cup of Nations in January, does mean that void is kind of open, and we haven't got the most options, Kabasele, Cathcart and Sierrauta, but if they don't, take to the Premier League like a duck to water, then we could be, in real trouble, and I do worry about that, but I still think the squad is good enough to stay up. It's just about, can we get the results done, and ultimately, can we score enough goals? That's always the problem with Watford, but I think that some of the signings certainly are impressive. I think that Josh King can really revitalise his career at Watford, and also I think that Cucho Hernandez looks so good. Calling back from the loan move, he just has that flair about him, and I'm excited by him. I think he's an exciting player to really get involved in this season. But yeah, gain your thoughts in the comment section, because I'll be interested to hear what you think. I think some of our midfielders have been fantastic buys. I think Sissoko is the perfect replacement for Will Hughes, and obviously Hughes is a big loss. But we've also brought in a really good midfielder in Ozan Tufan, with Chalobah leaving the club permanently. That's a sad thing to see, but he just wasn't. His head wasn't in it. A bit like Will Hughes, and Domingos Quina going out on loan. Let's see if he can do something. The same goes for Andre Gray, and it's a shame to see Wilmot go as well to Stoke, but I think he was never going to be in with a shout of featuring. So there's a few different players here that we have let go, but also some good players we've brought in to strengthen. So yeah, Dennis the Menace, hopefully he carries on being a good player for us. So yeah, I think it's not bad. I think it's, if not mid-table, then we've just crept into 9th. Into 8th spot now, though, we are going for the team that is Leicester City. Now, I think Leicester have actually had a decent window, and the reason for that is I think they've done well to keep hold of James Maddison. Rumoured a lot with Arsenal, and also they've got some defensive injuries from last season, and that's carried unfortunately into this season. But with that injury to Fofana, they've done well to get in Yannick Vestergaard. He's a very strong centre-back, and I think the signing of Patson Daka is very impressive. He's going to be very good once he gets into the swing of things. Sumari as well in midfield looks very solid, and I also think the signing on that fullback position I'm trying to think now who it is, but Ryan Bertrand, he's still very experienced, 31 years of age, on a free transfer, could do a lot of good really. So I think Leicester have got to be pleased with their transfer window. It's not been spectacular, but some of their players have got a lot of potential to do really well. And yeah, I think Daka will certainly, hit the ground running. And I think that, they can be fairly pleased with it. So fair play, Leicester. Decent transfer window. And I'm putting you in 8th. Now, into 7th. And here we're talking about a team who really should be maybe higher up. But I'm just not that inspired. It's Manchester City. Obviously, the signing of Jack Grealish is a fantastic signing. He's a fantastic player. The question I've got for you people is, do they need him? Because they've got so many options in that team. Their squad depth is ridiculous. And I know the loss of Aguero is a massive one. Did they need to replace him straight away? Maybe. But Jesus is still capable, and he actually is playing more on the wing with Ferran Torres up front. So they've got so many options. They still score goals. But Grealish gives them that wow factor. He will get much better as he gets into the swing of things. But that is a good signing. Obviously, whether you think he's 100 million or not is another matter. Villa didn't want to, didn't want to hold a grudge, but they didn't want to move a budge, basically. They didn't want to move at all, and City had to match it. So, by the way, I was just going to say, Burnley, a very underrated signing from them. Connor Roberts, the Swansea fullback, really good. But no, back on Man City. I do think this is a good window because Grealish is class. But other than that, they've done virtually nothing. And obviously, to see Jack Harrison go, I think City fans won't be too worried. They've got great strength in depth. And I think Ronaldo and Kane not coming to the club is a problem because, like I said, they still do miss a number 9, a classic number 9 target man. But as we've seen, they've still scored an amazing amount of goals in the start of the season. So there's still a lot of things to be excited about for Manchester City. They certainly have a very impressive team. And it's a little bit like Liverpool. You know, when they won the season in 1920, the transfer window after, they didn't strengthen much. And I think that's a little bit of arrogance coming off there. But to be honest, that Man City team, with Ronaldo, that would have been unreal. With Kane, of course, they would have won the league. So they don't need much strengthening. But I think it's still a very good window for them, to be honest. So we move on next to the spot of 6th. And in 6th position, I've got a team who... they really are like a very solid unit. I rate their transfers. I rate their team. I rate pretty much most that I've kind of addressed in this video, and we'll address it now. And that's Crystal Palace. When I say I rate their team, I mean the team they've got now. Obviously, it will take a while to gel. And last season they were really awful, like so boring to watch. But obviously the Eze injury hasn't helped them. And I think that they will struggle because of that. But the signings they brought, Elise, I think that's a very good signing from Reading. Very under the radar. Also, up front, can I just say, Odsonne Edouard, a fantastic player from Celtic. That's a really good signing. And also, defensively, you know, Mark Guehi is a really good signing. And also, Joachim Andersen. These are very solid players here. So, I think Palace have done well. They had a decent window. And I think Patrick Vieira is going to be, you know, getting a lot out of them. But it's about gelling. Obviously, they've got a new, rebuild, a lot of fresh faces to get used to playing with each other. But the signing of Gallagher as well from West Brom, he's looked really, really good to start the season. And I think they'll be happy. So, yeah, fair play to Crystal Palace. They've done a decent job. And I think that they will be there or thereabouts in this season, maybe in mid-table finish. But I think they will maybe have a few parts of the season where they kind of flirt with relegation because they still need to gel properly. But still, a good window, and they are going in that spot. All right, then, let's finish up. When I say finish up, I mean to go into 5th spot now, and the team is West Ham United. Now, I wasn't going to put West Ham this high, but they ended the window really, really strongly. The signing of Alex Crow is a very good one. Frizzy hair guy, of course, got a lot of experience in midfield. But also the signing of Nikola Vlasic from CSK Moscow is a very good signing, I think. He was impressive for, you know, Moscow in the last few seasons. And I think the signing of, you know, the midfield, like, you think about that midfield, how many times it's been rumoured away, but Ben Rama has stayed and he's done well and he's started the season fantastically. Also, can I just say, the strike force is a problem because, of course, you want more players to compete with Antonio, but I still think West Ham are good enough. Their squad looks solid. They've got some decent players into the club, and I think that they'll be happy enough. You know, it's not been amazing from them, but I think certainly with like teams like Everton, who've gone and signed a really good buy in Damari Gray, West Ham have kind of got a few more bargains up their sleeve, and they've got some good players in. So I think this West Ham transfer window, especially with the signing of Kurt Zouma, is certainly not to be sniffed at. That's why they're as high as 5th. And I think West Ham fans, okay, they haven't had much investment in the past, but I think they've done well enough in this transfer window. So moving on then, shall we, to the 4th spot. We're into the top 4, and for this one, I'm going with the team of Aston Villa. Okay, they have had an absolutely insane window, I think. But put it down in the comments. I just think they've just strengthened in the areas they needed to. I think they're a solid 8 out of 10, if not higher, for this window. Because some of their players, Emi Buendia, Danny Ings, Leon Bailey, these are fantastic signings. And Villa, obviously getting the 100 million from Jack Grealish's transfer, have used the money wisely. You see, in the past, you know, even teams like Juventus, when they got the 89 million or whatever it was from selling Paul Pogba to Manchester United, did they use it well? Not really. You know, when Spurs got the money from selling Bale, did they use it that well? Not really. So you see this again and again, big players moving for money and they don't use the money wisely. But I actually think that Villa very much have, and I think that Ings is the perfect target man they needed to have alongside Ollie Watkins. I also think in midfield, that signing of Leon Bailey is a very impressive one. And then in the defence, I think Ashley Young will be there and thereabouts. He's got a lot of experience from Inter Milan, and I think Villa have done a great job in this window. I think there's not much more to add than that. So yeah, very, very well done to Aston Villa. Some good signings in there. I think Buendia will absolutely shine. I think that Villa just look a much more threatening team right now, and Tuanzebe is solid in their defence. So obviously they still need to gel when they've had these many changes, but the signs are good for Aston Villa, and I think they have done what they needed to, and they can really push towards Europe. But obviously the selling of Grealish is going to hurt. Now let's move into this third spot. This is getting very, very important now. This is where you're talking very good windows for these clubs. So in third spot, it's a bit of a surprise one, but we've gone with Tottenham. Now, the main reason for this is keeping Harry Kane. It looked so much like Manchester City would be getting him in, and they haven't let him go, and he's there for at least the summer. So that is an achievement in itself to keep Harry Kane. Also, Spurs have got rid of a few players who maybe weren't quite committed at the club. You likes of Danny Rose, Moussa Sissoko, but also players who were kind of always rumoured with a move, and they just weren't quite in the thick of things. The head wasn't in the game. And that's players like Toby Alderweireld. And they're players they brought in, Brian Gil from Sevilla, as part of the swap deal with them for Lamela. I think Brian Gil is a fantastic option that they've got in their team. And also, I rate their transfer of Christian Romero. I think he is very, very solid as a defender. Also, Galini's a good backup as well to Hugo Lloris, because there's been talk of him moving on in a season or two. So, yeah, Spurs, I think, should be fairly happy. Obviously, the Kane thing is the main thing, but it's still a decent window for Spurs, and I think that it would have been nice to see them sign another striker, because obviously Kane getting injured is always a problem for Spurs. Son can play that further forward role, and we've seen really impressive performances to start the season from your likes of Moura, Bergwijn, Ali, who seems to get a newfound position with Nuno as manager. So yeah, Spurs have a lot to be confident about. Obviously, they've started the season well, not been spectacular, but they've got the job done, and that's good enough. 1-0 wins to start the season. Their defence is looking much better with Tanganga in there, and obviously Reguilon has been pretty impressive as well. So yeah, Spurs have got to be happy enough, I think, and certainly some of their signings have been quite impressive. So I think, yeah, let's say that Spurs will definitely, push on this season. I don't think they will get Champions League, but you never quite know. But certainly their window has been pretty good for their Tottenham kind of reputation. They don't often make many signings, but this signings have been quite clever in my opinion. Now, this is the drum roll. This is the big moment. Who have I gone for the best window between Manchester United and Chelsea? It's a really, really tough one, because I think both these sides have strengthened excellently. Ronaldo, Lukaku, both two fantastic strikers who are just absolutely playing at the top of their careers. But who do I think won the transfer window? I'm going for Manchester United. Yes. So let's address Chelsea in second first. Chelsea have had a fantastic window. There's no debating it. They have been brilliant. But I just think they could have done a little bit more. Obviously, they've had to get loads of players off their books because they basically have everyone out on loan at this point. But also, selling Tammy Abraham was the right move. He wasn't getting the game time he deserves. Tomori to AC Milan is fair enough. And also, I think that, certain players in there, do deserve more game time. So they obviously do need to get these players off their wage bills. But the players they brought in, they've used that money so wisely, and they haven't made many transfers because their team is still strong. Mendy, goalkeeper sorted. Defence, pretty strong. So you haven't got a lot to strengthen there. But yet they've still got some very good players in there. And now they've got Romelu Lukaku, who is exactly what they needed. He's the missing piece in the puzzle, because They need that number 9. They need that guy who's going to get 20, 25 goals a season. And Lukaku is that man. So impressive at Inter Milan. So much strength. Good link-up play. It's perfect. It looks a really good move. So that's a really good transfer. Also, Saul Niguez on the final day of the deadline was really, really good for a signing. On loan, of course, he will do well in that midfield and really control it. So, yeah, some good signings in there. I think, obviously, Bettinelli as well will be the backup for Mendy with Kepa not really in favour, you'd imagine. So, some nice little signings in there for Chelsea. I think that certainly some of them have been really impressive. Reece James, I know he's not a new signing, but he started the season so well. And then obviously the Liverpool game happened and he was unlucky. But I think that Chelsea have got a lot to be happy about. Their signings of Lukaku certainly and Saul Niguez are really, really good. So, yeah, Chelsea fans, you should be quite optimistic right now. I think you're going to have a strong push for the title. And I think that, they haven't done much, but what they have done is really, really good. So now that leads on to Manchester United, who I think have had the best window of any Premier League team in the August window this season. The reason I say that is they've strengthened where they needed to, and how. So first of all, we have to talk about him. It's Cristiano Ronaldo, the GOAT, the greatest of all time. What a player, and it's such a great story. Back to Manchester United after being there at the age of 16 or 18 or whatever it was from Sporting, and now he's back. And he has since then proven to be the best of the best. He is the goal scorer. He is the man who takes the penalties, takes the free kicks, and now he's developed to his game a side of teams work. He's got the team play that he didn't have when he was a stroppy youngster, and that is a great signing. Also, Varane, can I just say, solid, and Sancho, all fantastic players, and for that reason, Man United win the transfer window. But get in the comments. Those are my thoughts on the overrated and underrated players. There it is. We go. The scenes. The absolute clock is ticking. The breaking news is over. This one's going down to the wire. The fax machine is out. The paperwork. Here we go. But the transfer deadline is done. Hope you have enjoyed, and I'll smash a like on it myself. No, I'm joking. But make sure you do, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye-bye.